Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Good night. Um, Welcome to this TDL webinar on the subject of privacy in 2026. Um, Privacy has been a recurring issue, a growing issue over many years, and there's lots to look forward to in the coming year, wherever you are. So this session will be recorded, is being recorded, and will be made available on our YouTube channel, and that will be made available to everyone who registered for the event, as well as a short report, which will be on our Substack channel. Um, we have three great panelists, and we have a superb moderator who is our strategic advisor, Claire Vishik, who I happily hand over to now to carry on with the rest of the session. Over to you, Claire.
Thank you so much, David, and many thanks for the Association Trust in Digital Life for hosting us today. Privacy or privacy, depending on where you are located, has been a core topic for decades with regard to the electronic data. Privacy made its entrance into the technical and regulatory space in the late 80s, early 90s, with the first technologies, the understanding that combining sources of data, you can de-identify previous, previously identified data subjects, and the regulations in Europe and then in other countries followed. Now, 3 decades later, we are in the world of artificial intelligence. All the data that has been created, um, all the information and knowledge that has been accumulated by the human civilization, more or less, has become part of the shared artificial intelligence space. The approaches that have been used for decades to protect privacy, such as opt-in, opt-out, such as notice, such as data minimization or anonymization in this huge pool of data that's now available, are less effective because of how the data are used. And although the technologies have developed significantly, new threats now affect how we view privacy. For instance, encrypted data can be subjected to uh, de-identification by quantum computers that are relatively close to their emergence today. Also, data are routinely pulled together, and even when de-identified, it has um, a significant opportunity to be derived in relation to a data subject much better with the artificial intelligence techniques and the availability of data that we have today. The regulatory approaches have evolved. They now include artificial intelligence, at least in some regional regulations. But is it sufficient? These are the questions of accountability, enforcement, technology, regulation, and generally prospects for short-term development that we are going to address today. We will focus more on the United States today, but also mention other regulatory environments. We are fortunate to have outstanding participants in the panel today. We have Virginia Bartlett, who is the practice lead at Colossus Technologies Group. We have Janne Uusileto, who is a global leader in AI governance, and also has an illustrious history in privacy and security engineering. And we had Conrad Visi, who is a cybersecurity and privacy champion and teaches at the University of Maryland in Baltimore County. With that, I will start the discussion by asking our panelists to um, give the lay of the land to express what is important for um, privacy today. What is the state of privacy this year? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? What is the immediate future? Um, we will go in alphabetical order for this question. Virginia, could you please start?
Yes, hi. Thank you, Claire, and thank you, David, for the opportunity to be here. Great to be here with our panelists. Um, I am a practice lead for a group called Colossus Technologies, which is based in the United States, and we focus on staffing and services for digital governance, which covers cyber, AI, privacy, and data governance. We are ops and tech oriented. We are not legal oriented, which puts us in this unique space to understand what clients are looking for and what they're experiencing and the challenges they're experiencing, trying to keep pace with AI and developing use of AI in their organizations from a governance standpoint. I focus primarily on governance. I'm 30 years in the privacy space. And what I see is that the AI velocity is amplifying data governance problems that may already exist. And it's outpacing the governance solutions that we have. Our governance solutions are somewhat static. And as AI is evolving, the solutions are becoming fragmented. And we're losing internal observability to what is actually happening because of this disconnect and the compression in the time that AI is bringing. What I see clients struggling with is this compression between the time between adoption of the technology and the speed of the new rules and laws. While traditional privacy enforcement is still happening. So you still got to do your DPIAs, you still got to do your cookies management, you still got to do tracker management, you still got to do your DSARs. But AI is speeding everything up. And what I see clients struggling with is also the speed of the rules that are happening and trying to stay on top of that. So all of these are all kind of compressed because of AI. Historically, for those of us that have been around, in the United States, it was years between privacy laws, right? So HIPAA 1996, GLBA 1999, GDPR in 2018, right? You see the pace. And yes, we complained in the United States about the fact that we were fragmented by industry. But in truth, we had time to sort of figure out the strategies for fragmentation. Now, what we see is in just 2 to 3 years, we've seen well over 140 enacted laws on AI across dozens of states in the United States, taking a little piece of what the AI issue or challenge is, and not necessarily taking it holistically. So that's 140 rules in 2 to 3 years on top of what we already have. And what's different is we don't have that pace that we traditionally had in privacy to try to figure out the strategies. And so, I think what my clients are seeing is kind of also reflected in a recent CDO report, Chief Data Officer Insights report, that 70% of companies report using AI, generative AI, and interestingly, 76 say that governance frameworks are lagging, and most of them are saying that's about data quality and retrieval issues. They also say, and this is where Colossus comes in, that about 65% of employees trust AI outputs, even when data gaps remain, while most leaders say that most employees don't have the literacy to question them. So what I see here, and to kind of sum it up, is that there's an amplification of issues that are already existing, and our solutions and our tools are fragmented and trying to keep up. And the solution from my perspective is to bring them together in a way that does not interfere or slow down the organization. And that's where some of the expertise is that I can hopefully bring to the panel today.
Thank you very much for this excellent overview of the part that you are seeing that's important to you and your organization. A follow-up question: when we have artificial intelligence and powerful models available to everyone today. It's mostly possible with submitting a certain type of data to re-identify a data subject, or at least their positioning, their location, and things of this nature. Um, do you think re-identification continues to be a key issue in privacy, or do you think some other issues replaced it?
So from my perspective, coming from privacy, AI is yet another innovative technology that's accelerating data use. And if you think about it in the privacy framework, the controls are around data use. Is the use of data in any way in an AI model okay? Is it purposed? Is it permissioned? Is it consented to? In that instance, the controls are around ensuring that it is, and that the data that's sourced is appropriate permissioned, the data outputs in the model are appropriately permissioned, and the inferences are accurate. And I think the major issue is really whether or not AI is drawing conclusions that are accurate and that the outputs are not inaccurate. I think the permission question is the one for me that is the intersection with privacy, less so about if it's encrypted, less so if it's encrypted and it's getting de-encrypted. But that's more of a cyber issue too. I think probably Conrad can address that part. But from my lens, from the privacy lens, it's the use question. Is it permissioned use?
Thank you. That's a good way to address it. If the permissions are properly established for a certain type of interactions, the situation will be improved. The challenge here will be, of course, to anticipate all the possible interactions for which the permissions may be needed, considering the multitude of potential interactions with AI models. But this is a good approach, and I think we will discuss it more further on. Janne, you straddle both the European world and the US world. You understand the European approaches, the US approaches. Moreover, you worked in both privacy technologies and AI governance, as well as security, where we work together. What is your view on the current state of privacy?
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's as you remember, I'm always a little bit optimistic and and forward-looking. And to me, as if I exclude my first decade as a programmer and game developer and solution architect, I've been always tackling the systemic problems, like always going beyond what's today. And when I look at privacy today, is that finally we are there where there's a clear, evident demand for technical solutions, which kind of mostly are there. And the holistic demand, what we see is, yeah, maybe I'm a technologist a little bit, but it really makes me enjoying that finally we can find all the technologies, make them work. Like taking an example, like the AI starts running everything in a machine speed. There's no time for manual privacy anymore, which makes like the thing I've been driving last decade on this kind of automated real-time compliance, meaning that it's not anymore that you have this checkbox and control frameworks inside house, and once a year you do the audit, and then you are fine for a year. No, that's not the case anymore. And there are technologies supporting that. And at the same time, when the AI is challenging us on multiple fronts in security and privacy, it also enables us to do a lot of things. And therefore, that's something what I'm secretly enjoying of observing. And of course, that makes me thinking on the solution side as well. And I must admit that the first time, maybe ever, I see that the technology is not exactly there yet. Like if we think like machine unlearning, it's a really difficult problem. There are manual solutions, there are all kind of solutions for that, but nothing is really perfect. Same time when talking the real-time compliance, that the fragmentation, like, you know, the US fragmentation is one, but the world fragmentation is the other. And I actually absolutely welcome the digital omnibus in EU, that some harmonization finally, and it surprises me it's coming from Europe, not from US. But then when going like geopolitics, like the huge race on for general artificial intelligence, like, you know, it forces people to skip many of the good things because they want to be the first one. And that's a little bit worrying there. So there are a lot of like conflicting pressures, lots of technical solutions, and finally some positive development in the regulation as well. But it's not gonna make it easy, and that's a kind of thing I really like there. But putting it more in a like cybersecurity background, I have one particular thing I really study a lot at the moment is this non-human entities, like agentic identification and authorization, and what it demands. Like long time ago, I built a big AI for Nokia for like, you know, billion customers. And the first requirement I had was that we should be able to recycle certificates very quickly and, you know, test the whole certificate renovation every year or even more frequently. But things tend to get fixed. Like, you know, you have one secret key and you never change that until you have to. But now when we have like hundreds times more entities what has to be identified, revocated, everything in real time, that really puts the big AI in a new challenge. And of course, not talking about the post-quantum cryptography, which is then messing the whole thing. But all in all, this makes that there's so many opportunities. We know what we need. We have technologies under development, but they are not yet there. And if summarizing this all, this is a huge opportunity for companies who are proactively looking at, okay, what's going to happen? And therefore, I think that it probably haven't really been, but today compliance and privacy becomes a strategy. Like you take your direction, you start implementing before the customers and regulators are asking, and you start winning. And that's like, you know, huge opportunity at this time, because there are so many who sit down and wait that somebody's providing the solution. And then there are few who actually build the capability, make their mind and start developing, because none of this is unknown. There are unknown ways of doing things, but there are no unknowns what is the goal, because the goal is practically data subject rights and managing the data subjects, whoever those are, and protecting them, and in enabling technologies to forget, remove, delete. And as much as you can automate, more you are on the winning side. More you have manual things, more you are in trouble with the regulators and you know, state sponsored attacks, etc. And last thing I have to put that I have a long history in biometrics as well. So I'm really much welcoming that now when we have the, like, you know, the deep fakes, agentic things, the biometrics is becoming absolutely important. We have to know who authorized all these hundreds of agents going around. There has to be like hardware root of trust, which probably Claire sounds really familiar to you as well. So finally, that also is showing absolute value. If you put the biometrics in between the whole thing, what's happening there, then you start having like the root of trust and verification of the livelihood of the actual entity who is releasing all these things. So all in all, I see this as a lot on like technology opportunity, but there's also a huge business opportunity for those who take this seriously enough.
Thank you, Janne. Indeed, we have technology opportunities, and some of the technologies you mentioned, specifically agentic AI, from one point of view, could be a dream of privacy professionals, user-controlled privacy. And it's used, the technology is used more on and more without considerable interest in its opportunities as a user-controlled privacy source. On the other hand, um, the independence of agents, while effective for discovery, can certainly affect the user's privacy in a negative way. As a user of agents yourself, how do you resolve this potential controversy between the potential for privacy and potential for privacy violations in one technology? What do you think?
It's hard to comprehend how to put it in a like one mold, but I think it comes through the again old idea that you have like data integrity between the actions and the users. Like you have to drop the identity of the person somewhere, but you keep the data integrity between the action and the consequences. Like giving an example, like I already started talking about this hardware root of trust, that if you think the whole trust chain starts from the user brain, goes through the UI on the app system all the way to the supply chain. And then in the agentic world, it goes in the other direction, but it's a similar way. It's a chain of actions, and in the agentic world, I think like we have already seen that people know this issue is that there shouldn't be unauthorized or anonymous agents anywhere, and keeping this in mind when implementing systems, that somebody authorizes and the authorization is anonymous but solid and auditable through the whole chain. That's the like technical way of thinking it. And of course, if you put the accountability in a picture, that you are able to trace back every agent, whatever they are doing in a player, or at least disable them because you know the chain of trust all the way at the end. That's the kind of view I have for it. Like I think it's there, it's complex, and kind of train went already partially because there are already agents, nobody knows who initiated them. But that's its world, that we have to grow on more trustworthy infrastructure, and it starts from supply chain and ends on the user brain.
Thank you very much, Janne. And this is a reasonable approach, certainly, even with the requirement for trustworthiness infrastructures, and some of them exist already. It's somewhat easier to trace the chain of trust than it is to implement full explainability for systems where the code is generated automatically and new data becomes available all the time. Thank you very much. We'll return to this issue also later in the discussion. We have discussed the rule systems and the technologies. There is also the legal and ethical side of privacy, and I hope Conrad is going to tell us more about its state in 2026. Now, what do you think, Conrad?
Yeah, well, I do teach ethics of computing, but I'm mostly a technologist. I'm
Okay.
a mathematician who spent a good portion of my career within the federal government, mostly working on software security, cybersecurity, but then also cryptography, and I was managing research projects within the federal government at various places. And then after that, I went to the industry side where I was doing the research and helping to accomplish some interesting things for the government on that side. But what I see when I talk to my students, computer scientists and computer engineers mostly, there's a little bit of a disorientation that I think they are feeling, and I get it. I get it because I need to constantly think about, um, are the lectures I used last month still valid, right? Is the things I prepared last 2 weeks ago to speak about tomorrow, do they still apply, or are they overtaken by events? That's how rapidly the generative AI revolution is happening, kind of as we speak. We're in an era of rapid change, and it can be feel a little bit chaotic, especially to the students, because they're not only trying to learn the the curriculum of the past, which is what they're being offered in the universities today. The university curriculum is not caught up. So they're learning standard software engineering disciplines. And those are great. I mean, they train you to ask the right questions, even of the AI systems that are emerging. Um, but they're also looking at the job market and thinking people aren't hiring traditional software engineers. Um, what's the answer, right? If they invest their time and energy into the latest widget and tool in 6 months, that could be obsolete. So it's a little bit of uncertainty, and I can feel that in them, and because I feel it myself in just figuring out what I'm going to teach. So the generative AI kind of whirlwind that we're in right now feels a lot like the kind of wild, wild west in terms of there's no established standards, there's no established mitigations, there's no established common understanding of the threats. When we talk about agentic AI is, has replaced kind of I'll call it fit for purpose engineering, right? With this loosely coupled graph of components, agents that talk to each other, talk to models, talk to the user in sometimes pre-programmed ways and sometimes in ways that are emergent in the way they're structured together. Um, so that non-determinism creates some real challenges for privacy, right? Where are the attack surfaces? Where are how do you mitigate them? Um, Jana mentioned there's an issue with identity and authorization and authentication about these agents that, they've emerged right now without those capabilities for the most part. So how do we kind of retrofit these, good security practices onto what's essentially a free-for-all in terms of architecture? Architecture is its infrastructure as code, right? I simply define in a JSON file what the agents are and how they need to be coupled, and it will load them up at runtime from this text document. That's a different programming model, and it's going to call into the model of the day, or might be multiple models, or the first model it calls, its output is the prompt for the second model. It's like there's a complex processing chain that's not always deterministic, and that creates engineering challenges especially for privacy, but also for data protection. The standard questions still apply, but how they're answered is now changing, and it's hard to know how to apply what mitigations are available to apply and how to apply them when it seems a little bit dynamic. The system is a little bit moving underneath you. One of the aspects of that generative AI revolution is code generation by AI, right? When you generate, 10,000 lines of code. Now, AI right now doesn't really generate a million line code base. It's not capable of doing it in any coherent way. And I think that's recognized. But for a small component of a few thousand lines, it's going to generate code that no longer has that institutional knowledge that was hard won when the code was developed by a team who's maintaining a code base over many years. Now it's generated code that no one really understands, that no one has seen, and no one's inspected it. So, and it's possibly not able to be maintained. If it needs to be changed, AI will change it, generate a new one on the fly. That creates a lot of problems from a traditional, software security and security engineering point of view. It's like, how do we know what's in there? How do we know what the exposures are and the attack surfaces are? So I think we need a new discipline of software engineering that can allow for AI generated code and how to integrate it into a software engineering process so that we can have some assurance that we're not putting code out there that's vulnerable. To me, I'm going to throw it out there that the answer here is an increased adoption of formal verification techniques and some model-based systems engineering. That's good for software security and it's good for privacy as well, right? One of the reasons that AI is used to generate code is, hey, can I tweak a few clock cycles out of this code of efficiency? Well, if the code is verified correct, right, replacing it with any AI generated code is automatically defined as a step backwards. It can't be better if it's proven correct with respect to the security or functional properties we care about. So it's less likely to be changed by AI, and any kind of optimizations will be probably hand-tuned because the code, you don't want to change the security proof. The more code that can be subject to that, generated with these formal verification methods, the more that code base will be left as is and is not likely to be kind of changed at wild and unpredictable times by AI. And also the model-based systems engineering is where you take requirements and you specify them formally, and then you generate code directly from requirements without, it sounds like AI, right? But it's not, I mean, it actually could be leveraging AI in some ways, but the end result can then be formally verified that it meets those requirements and satisfies it. So you're not making mistakes of implementation by handwriting code, but also you're creating code that itself can be verified against the requirements. I think that will solve a lot of the problems that are probably still coming with AI generated code, but it still feels like there's a lot of uncertainty about where software engineering as a practice is going. And how do software engineers and computer scientists as professionals kind of deal with these new tools and these new capabilities in ways that leverage their standard cybersecurity and software assurance and systems assurance principles that are still valid. They just are a little hard to figure out where you tighten the bolts and turn the screws in an agentic AI, system.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. You touched upon several interesting problems for which we sort of know potential solutions, but not real solutions in today's world. Formal verification methods have always been useful, but they have considerable scalability issues in their current form. This could change with the new technologies that are available to us today. There is the code generation for new programs with AI that has been proven to have significant security and privacy issues by default, even when serious attempts are made to overcome them. Then there is huge issues of self-updating LLMs that generate a lot of code to make themselves up to date and adjust their responses to the information they have acquired in different ways. So that is an adjacent issue that is difficult to resolve. All of this is tangentially or intimately in some areas connected to privacy. Since you already mentioned new attacks, new threats that were brought forth by artificial intelligence with regard to privacy, what are additional privacy attacks that you can mention that have
Yeah.
emerged recently and for which we have no clear mitigations yet?
I can think of, so let me throw out a couple. So the first is related to agentic AI, right? So when you are providing private information in a chat session with a large language model, with potentially multiple agents kind of processing that behind the scenes, you're giving that private information, and any private information that's in any retrieval augmented generation data vector database that you're using, right? All of that combines to create a fingerprint for you, your prompt and the information you're relying on to ask your question, the RAG content. What's the privacy implications of that combined picture? Uh, I think you reference, you didn't do it directly, but you referenced some of the re-identification work that had been done in the past. I think there was a famous Netflix paper on Netflix re-identification based on uh, uh, borrowing habits of Netflix video viewing habits. They could identify who the Netflix subscriber was. Well, that was successful on a very impoverished profile of each user relative to the riches we have today. So AI can certainly handle, probably without a whole lot of additional tweaking, a lot of re-identification tasks that would have been, mathematically impossible, 15 years ago. And now they could probably be done with a simple prompt. So both the richness of our profiles online is staggering, and also the capability of AI systems to process that and say, "Oh, I recognize this person," even though there's no PI. It could only be this person who likes these has these interests and has been to these locations, and there you go, re-identification. So I think there's an issue with the the very large volumes of information that are accumulating in online profiles. So that's one aspect. And we don't really know who the agents are providing our data to, right? If you're enabling an agent that reserves a table at a local restaurant, do you really know what information is being passed to that restaurant related to you? You don't. There might be some, little, slick sheet for that component, that agent that says what the owners or the builders of that agent think it does or want to market themselves as doing, but who really knows what it does? There's no sense of verification that an agent is doing what it should do and nothing else. So we need more tools for that, to analyze agentic AI systems and LLM-based applications. The same type of tools we have for traditional software development projects. We need to develop those for these agentic systems as well. The other thing is a little bit out of the box. Other privacy thing I'll mention is that the psychological transfer with people using AI over long periods of time and beginning to trust that AI as if it was their best friend with whom they could share their deepest secrets. And it's not, but it happens. And where are those secrets going? I'll throw that out there. We're starting to see a little bit of this as a problem on the fringes of our society, but will it become a serious, more widespread issue in the future? I don't know. I hope not.
very interesting. I heard it from a variety of entity, and it was a shock to me at first. The last issue that you mentioned, that there are significant um, issues of secret sharing and increasing dependency in some populations with the agents that become their main vehicles of communication and are trusted as if they were close friends or family members, or the only entities that understand their thoughts and their intent. That's very interesting, very unusual, certainly not something that we know yet, except in theory, how to deal with. Thank you very much, Conrad. What are other threats and potential mitigation that come to mind? Jane, you mentioned several of them before, and I'm sure you have a few more to share, as well as potential mitigations.
Yeah, first, thanks, Conrad, for excellent points on the programming. And there is actually one on the software development I like it to discuss as well, but I'd like it to reflect back first that I'm not in a psychology or anything, but I think this conversations with the AI is absolutely mind-blowing. If you think like when you treat them as a discussion partner, you have a conversation. Our whole psychology and even maybe biology as well is tuned that you have a conversation with the person, and in the heat of the moment you may say something what you don't mean. Then your human friend is probably forgetting it or put it in the context. But the AI, it remembers everything in detail. It never forgets. And that's a huge privacy problem as well. Like, anything you say goes in and never disappears in a current way of the systems work. So exactly, again, this unlearning is probably becoming really important in that sense as well, that the conversations, what you store, what kind of profiling there is, what's allowed, what's useful and what's harmful. And this whole thing probably should be the science of itself, that how the human interaction is leaving only meaningful and good parts and not the harmful or misleading parts. But that was just my reflection for the last part because it was so super interesting to hear. But for the coding, the agentic software development, one thing again puts back in a long time in the perspective, like there's this saying which is for data, but it's almost anything else as well, is that if you put the low quality stuff in, you can't expect high quality results. And I think in the AI era that comes from multiple fronts, and in software development, like if you think this as like absolute, objectively, AI generated code is not worse than human generated code if they know what they are doing, but the difference comes from the context. Like AI generated code is practically copy paste coding. And when it takes the solution and put it into your code, it may missing the context. And I think you reflected that as well. Like, yeah, it puts in a place, the functional requirement is in there. It works like it's supposed to work, but what else is there you don't know. And was it original purpose of that code piece actually in there? And therefore it comes all the way back to that you need to know the right question in order to get the right answer. And in software development, it's the same thing. Like if the developers become lazy and they just, give a really, really non-detailed requirement, they get the code, they get the functionality, fine. But there can be lots of surprises what they didn't know. And this is something which I really think that the context should be there in the requirements. And when building a technical specification myself, I learned this already like at the time of the Nokia when we built the global hardware security strategy, that having a like requirement that, okay, this must be encrypted by 256-bit key is not enough. You have to say why and what's the expected outcome. So then the developers actually can find alternative solutions, more impactful solutions, more high-performing solutions. So you are not just telling what to do, but you are telling why and what's the expected outcome. And I think with the AI, this is becoming even more important now. And there's the threat and there is the opportunity that the data sets must be absolutely cleaned from bias, from maybe personal identifiable information as well, in order that you don't need to machine unlearn. So the removing the risk before you are implementing, it's a common in this both, that the importance of the input is becoming more and more important in the human interaction, in the developing, and also on like the data learning. And I think there is like opportunity and risk both together. Claire, I hope this gave a little bit answer to your question as well. Okay.
Yes, it certainly does. It gives everyone food for thought. Back in the day, similar questions were asked about legacy code. There are millions of lines of legacy code, but no one understands anymore what they are for. I remember being engaged in a big project called Intent Semantics, where an attempt was made to prepare this legacy code for greater integration by managing intent of the original developers to the extent it was still clear. But intent semantics, if we call it this in code, in models, in other areas, could also provide excellent input into the regulatory compliance and regulatory developments. Virginia was talking about the speed with which the rules and the regulations have evolved, eliciting issues with regard to the response from organizations and even from individuals. What do you think of the positive influence of artificial intelligence of the regulatory space on the regulatory space today? I am talking about several projects and companies that have emerged looking at artificial intelligence role in clarifying what is needed for compliance, detecting contradictory rules and things of this nature, as well as maybe assisting in developing new regulations that are logical development of the current environment. What do you think? How is this going to work? Will it work?
So I have seen just in the last 6 months phenomenal acceleration in the use of AI to support privacy governance and data governance. An example might be one of the solutions that we use in privacy governance that integrates real-time ongoing data mapping and scanning through at the code level with an assessment. So I might have done an assessment, a year ago, but now I have a real-time update through code scanning. We can't get away from the fact that we have legacy procedures for governments. And the question will be, how do we take those legacy procedures and supplement them in a way that turns us from static to real time? And I have seen, I know at least that the code scanning is one example. I have seen the integration with DSARs, code scanning into DSARs, and the use of AI to support the responses and the fulfillment of DSARs. So I think the tools are starting to catch up. I don't think we're quite there, but I think they're starting to realize that the solutions also need to catch up with AI, and AI can help. I also like drawing on the conversation about the prompts that you're using in AI. I'm going to blow people's minds here, but about a year ago, I started asking the question that says, is my instance of AI considered personal data? Is it me? And I think that's a question we haven't asked and we need to ask. The more I use AI, the more I prompt it, the more it's becoming a profile of me. And I don't see the world yet evolving into a place that sees AI other than an application into which I'm inputting data rather than something that is becoming a profile of me and acting on my behalf. Another area where I've seen evolution is that some companies are starting to treat AI as employees when it comes to authenticating access within the internal organization. So, there's this kind of transition, I think, that's beginning to happen, not just in the technology, but in the view of the entity itself of AI. Is it a person? Is it a replication of a person? And should it be treated as personal data for that reason?
Thank you very much. You do probably blow everyone's mind with those issues. They are obvious on the surface, but never talked about, almost never talked about, because they are so pervasive. Talking about prompting and AI becoming the equivalent in some ways of an employee, I see what you reported on, that AI agents are permissioned as high-level employees to access certain types of data and make conclusions out of this, sometimes in area that are mission critical for organizations. And this results, the output of this activity is used uncritically, as it would be with inexperienced employee. Do you think there is some connection between potential erosion of essential organizational intelligence and expertise when using AI in this fashion? Or do you think an adjustment will be made, and it's not a serious concern?
Oh, I think we're years away from that adjustment, but I think the adjustment is coming. I've seen the evolution just in the last year or so. I think it has to come as people become more familiar with what AI is and what it does and what it has the potential to do. I think we're still kind of at the state where the view is that it's a tool that brings efficiency, that uses data, and it's being governed as a data use, and how do we control for data uses or inappropriate data uses. I don't yet think we're at that higher level that says this is not going away and it's fundamentally changing what a human being is, and what personal data is. I think that's coming. I don't think we're quite there yet.
I agree with you. I don't think we are quite there yet, even in as far as formulating the issue very clearly so that it can be clearly addressed. We are approaching the final stage of our discussion. I will ask each of you, in the reverse alphabetical order of the last names, to provide very brief conclusions about the discussion today. What are the main issues, where we are going? Are you optimistic or pessimistic about whether or not these issues will be resolved short term to a sufficient degree? So, Conrad, would you please start?
Thank you, Claire. Yeah, so I would say I am optimistic. So I do believe that privacy enhancing technologies are going to have a more widespread adoption because of the challenges we've laid out, and I think that will help address some of the problems that we're seeing. Not all of them, but a lot of research is still needed in pets to make them more efficient, to under different kind of security assumptions and things like that. But progress is being made, and that's good news. So I'm fairly optimistic about how AI, even with all the problems we've described, will bring innovation, and it's really helping society kind of think about the distinction between just straight cognition and more creative intuition. And I think humans are resilient and will adapt. But we're in a period of change right now. There's a little bit of a crisis happening, but I think we'll weather the storm. Thank you.
Um, thank you. And do you think these developments, understanding cognition, intuition, issues associated with the reign of AI today will be a positive development for privacy?
Yes, I do. Although that might be a fool's optimism. I think in the short term, it will not happen, but I think that we will develop new techniques, both by applying pets where they're not being applied right now in, say, agentic AI. It was the same when robotic process automation was the new great thing. It was being rolled out with very little privacy protections. Agentic AI is still in that same, you know, emerging phase. And I think once the appropriate mitigations are applied, I hope they'll be applied fairly broadly, and we'll see a tremendous reduction in the exposures we have now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it's great to have an optimistic view when the situation is so complex. Janne, what do you think? Are you optimistic about privacy in today's complex environment, especially in relation to the artificial intelligence?
Yes and no. Yeah, it really introduces new challenges there. But my optimism is exactly coming that now we have a new capabilities which we didn't have before. And putting a little bit in a perspective, like when I transferred myself from Europe to US, the big frustration I had on like enabling and enforcing privacy and security in this side was that especially privacy, but like accessibility was on my radar as well. They were more or less like compliance and legal dominant areas of work in tech companies. And for me, who have been always engineering that side, it was a little bit frustrating that actually the obstacle wasn't technologies, obstacle wasn't solutions and real-time privacy or compliance was were on my aim, but it was a little bit like having a strong and clear legal opinion for every requirement and every product become a bottleneck. And now my optimism is coming through that the demand for real-time compliance, the real-time privacy controls like policy in code, controls in code is finally making everybody understanding that, yeah, this is engineering. Of course, the legal is there, and legal is absolutely great support and an enabler for many discussions, but it can't be the control point. The customer experience and data protection is the control point, and we are finally getting there. That I really like. The other thing, again, referring what Conrad was saying, Virginia was saying that the organizational knowledge, it has been always a problem. I'm a perfect example of myself. I have a lot of kind of silent knowledge. I'm not writing books, I'm not writing blogs, but if somebody's asking me, I have more opinions than anybody is willing to listen. But now, if we are implementing agents right way, we can make them a way that they actually keep documenting all their interactions, whatever they do, and that actually grows the organizational knowledge, if not in the LLM and AI, maybe even in a people or human readable documentation. And that starts like a good cumulative effort for that. But of course, the problem is that people want to document everything and then become a bit too big and nobody's reading it ever. And, it disappears there and we are missing the opportunity. But that's what I think.
Thank you very much, Janne. There are definitely reasons to be optimistic, the ability to see all the data, the ability to make conclusions based on the fresh data as well as old conclusions, the ability to understand a lot of things by inference that were hidden before, certainly add opportunities in a variety of areas, including privacy. Thank you very much. And Virginia, could you tell us how do you see the immediate future? Are you optimistic, pessimistic? And please fold in the question on the magic wand.
Optimistic for the future. I optimistic because our solution providers in the governance space, and that's my expertise, are starting to build solutions using AI to help us keep pace. Like Yanni was saying, and like Conrad noted, I think the more we use AI, the more the fragmentation will come together and be addressed. I think right now it just feels like it's everywhere. My magic wand goes a little bit to my future. My magic wand is that I would wish that the people would start seeing the outputs of AI not just as data, but as impacting human beings and are about human beings. Now that's my unique privacy lens, right? And being a user myself, I see how AI is learning from me and what it's doing and not doing versus someone else that's using it. And so, my magic wand would be a wish that somehow, some way, there's a culture change where we don't just see it as data and we see it as inputs that are coming from a human being that are morphing into a likeness of me, a profile, and that we start integrating that into the way we're thinking about privacy and privacy governance.
Excellent point, and a great way to conclude our discussion today. It is the data that LLMs and agents and other privacy technologies are using to provide answers, conclusions, analysis. But it's the human beings that created this knowledge. So privacy is always relevant in different ways. And we need to understand these complex connections before we go much further. I am glad everyone on this distinguished panel is optimistic about the future, no matter how complex it is, no matter how fast everything is developing, no matter how potentially self-exclusionary, mutually exclusionary the new technologies might be in this space. Jeannie, Janne, Conrad, thank you very much for this fascinating discussion. You certainly gave everyone, our synchronous and asynchronous audience, a lot of food for thought. Thank you for your participation. And with that, I pass it on to David to conclude this discussion with thanks again for hosting it.
Thank you, Claire, and thank you to our panelists. That was a great discussion. Certainly gave me some interesting insights that I hadn't had before. And it's always good to leave on a positive note because the alternative is so depressing. So thank you very much for that. As I said at the start, this has been recorded. That will be made available early next week, together with a short report. And I look forward to meeting you all again, because this is a field that is going to keep on changing, particularly as we've been discussing with the impact of AI. So thank you and have a good rest of the day.